She's a public servant, a small business owner, and an artist. She was on the team that founded the first all-digital public library in the U.S., planting libraries and teaching digital literacy in southern Texas, a project that received worldwide attention. In 2016, she moved to Kitsap for the hiking and sailing, and subsequently fell in love with the community here. She helped build the new Silverdale Library. She's currently runs the Sylvan Way Library and Kitsap Regional Library's Mobile Service Department. She's a co-founder of the Kitsap Women's Summit. You should all go to it. In 2021, she was honored as a Kitsap 20 under 40, and in 2024 as a YMCA Woman of Achievement. She currently serves on 3 community boards, and lastly, she's an oil painter with her work held in private collections in 6 countries. She is currently working towards becoming a professional mediator for dispute resolution. Please welcome Ashley.
Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Creative Mornings for hosting all of these. I've been to some throughout the summer, and there's nothing quite like this. It's a really beautiful thing, so thank you for making it happen. And thank you all for spending the morning doing this. It's pretty amazing. It's a good time with all the weather to be inside. So I want to start out by talking about improv. And a big disclaimer, I don't do improv. Does anyone here do improv? Anyone? Yeah? No? Okay. If you did, then you'll understand these concepts a little bit better. But there's a reason I'm bringing this up, because these improv principles apply to life. So if you get nothing else from what I say, most of what I'll be talking about is personal. If you get nothing else, take a snap of this. Because many years ago, I had a friend who was much more outgoing than I am drag me to a beginner's improv class. And I hated it. And it still gives me nerves thinking about it, because it took a whole different level of bravery, in my opinion, and I'm not that kind of brave. But what I got from that, and it kind of cropped up, and now I don't participate, but I go to improv and watch it and very much appreciate it. And this was a picture I took a couple weeks ago in Copenhagen. We went to an improv show of a bunch of non-English speakers speaking English and doing improv, and it was really fantastic. But it's brave, right? And but the concepts around it are really strong. And so after my really bad run-in with improv, I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. And then about 9 or 10 years ago, I just moved here, try to do that math, and I went to an event at Kiana Lodge, and Galen Emanuel was speaking. He's kind of from the West Coast. It was a library thing for anyone who knows, yeah. And this changed my perspective, and you see this headline, so I put this screenshot up here because please go and watch this video. He can say it so much better than I can. Improv to be a better human being. He talks about how relevant these concepts are with working in a team. It's just definitely watch this video. But that's where I got the title for this, Yes and. And I've been thinking about this in terms of stories throughout my life. And so what I'll be sharing is not linear. These aren't linear stories, mostly from the last 10 to 15 years. But it's examples of where I said yes and in my life. And maybe it'll inspire you to either reflect back to past pivot points in your life where you said yes and now study them and recognize them so that you can do it going forward. And so the first kind of principle is acceptance, and so embracing ideas and the contributions of other people, creating a supportive atmosphere where people feel heard and valued. Creative Mornings is an example of that, but where else can we do this in our life? Addition, so the and, building on an idea instead of replacing it, whether it's someone else's idea or something that you have, instead of throwing it out, keep building on it. Combine, grow new concepts, foster a sense of shared creation and momentum. Collaboration, momentum probably makes sense without describing them. But active listening. If you think you're a good listener, go and take a class with the Dispute Resolution Center like I did. I took a 40-hour training, and I realized how bad of an active listener I actually was, and they teach you how to improve on that. And so a little plug for Dispute Resolution Center of Kitsap County. The work they're doing is quiet, powerful. Dispute resolution in Kitsap County is mandatory for certain groups. So if you go through a divorce and you have kids, you have to go and meet with them. So they're doing really impactful, quiet work. But even just as a bystander, even in kind of for professional or personal growth, take a class on active listening. And it was very humbling for me. And so, but it also fits with the improv stuff of we need to be very intentional about how we engage with other people. And I'm still figuring it out. So please check that out. So now I'll kind of roll into kind of my own, like I said, it's not linear, but my own stories around this, because I find that stories and imagery, so I'll have a lot of slides, are the best way to really understand, at least for me, a concept. And so hopefully this gives you a little boost. And part of this has been, I've been, over the last 10, 15 years, I've been really building up kind of a positive internal dialogue, and it takes a lot of work, right? So that's that yes and. One kind of very personal thing is I grew up in a Pentecostal Christian household. My mother was Pentecostal Christian. And so if anyone knows what that means that there can sometimes be a fixation on the rapture. So I spent most of my childhood not thinking I would reach adulthood, but it was done in a celebratory way. Like, aren't we so lucky that this won't happen? And so I kind of corrected my brain on that by the time I was able to critically think in high school. But what that did is kind of built up high cortisol levels, anxiety. It also made me a little fearless, so that was kind of the positive, not reckless. That's not really in my personality to be reckless at all. Maybe if I was someone else, it would have manifested differently, but it made me not plan ahead in life. And besides that, I had a wonderful childhood. Everything was wonderful. Great grandparents. My older sisters are incredibly successful. And so it's not some big, sad, traumatic story. It just is what it is, right? There was a mindset. And so, kind of nature versus nurture sort of thing. And I could give a whole other talk on disinformation and misinformation if anyone would like, but that's for a different day. So part of that's why I became a librarian, honestly. And so, we'll get to that next. So I didn't really plan what I wanted to do with my life because it hadn't occurred to me that I needed to. And so I ended up getting a degree in what I got a job in high school. A friend applied to the job. I also applied so I could work with her. And I ended up loving it so much, but I stuck with it. So I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in total in about 4.5 years. I just knocked it out. Really enjoyed it, and I got a master's in library and information science and nonprofit leadership. But I still had no plan. I was like, of course I'm going to do this. This is what I know. This is comfortable. And I did, and don't get me wrong, I'm still doing it, and I love it. And so it was a dumb luck, wonderful decision, and it was the right thing for me. So I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the time, and I, for reasons I won't explain, was looking for jobs in Texas. I'd already lived in a couple other states by this point, and I thought that sounded good. And so I started looking online, and I came across a very obscure job title called Technical Center Manager, right? I was looking for libraries. I came across this, and it was on this website, which still exists, and it was very obscure, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to apply for it. It was just one of those kind of, for lack of a better, kind of dumb, on a whim. I was applying for a bunch of other jobs. I applied for this one, and as they called me, and as I started interviewing, I realized that it was much more. I never actually got this job title. I ended up with a different one. It was much more than I ever expected it to be. And I had to make a decision of whether I was going to jump on board with this. And so what this was, it was a team of people that didn't know where to begin. It was a government that didn't have a county government that didn't have a library system. But what they had was a community of about 4 million people and kind of around San Antonio. And 85% did not have internet in their homes. 100% of the kids, K through 12, were on free and reduced lunch programs. That level of poverty that's the best way I can describe it. And so these were book deserts. They had no bookstores. They had no, or very small libraries in kind of adjacent to, and no resources in the schools. And really incredible community, just not around education, if that makes sense, right? Really incredible community, and I learned that. And they were actually having a hard time because this program was so controversial. They were having a hard time hiring locally, which was interesting. And they did. There were some people that joined in. And so so I moved, and we spent the next year building digital libraries, so all technology, in affordable housing complexes outside of the city in the county. And so technically it was the first all-digital public library, and it received national and international attention. Here's a photo. This is Julian Castro there, Paulo Elizondo, just some folks that are in Judge Wolf, kind of names in Texas. And the interesting part, we had all the parties and all the fun things. We ended up in the news. I got misquoted by the Associated Press. I ended up getting invited to do publications in other countries and things like that. The interesting thing about this is that UT San Antonio ended up doing a study, I helped with it, where some education PhD students actually studied some years later the impact that we made, because we actually got so much good and bad attention that sometimes we could fall into not tracking the work that was actually being done, right? There's a real thing. Everyone, even in the library world, it was highly controversial. I once had a librarian hiss at me, no joke, because there was this yes, right, yeah, there was this worry that somehow we were changing the library model for the rest of the US, and we weren't. We were just meeting a very specific need. And I can't even begin to go into the team building within our team of people and the storming and the norming that we went through as an internal group aside from this project. Like, I learned so much from that, and I can't even begin to explain it. And we're all still very close, the group of us that did this project together. But the impact that study showed is that us being there and just being a place of hope and joy increased, I think it was by 10%, and I don't know if they've done a study since. In the first 3 years, the graduation rates in the schools that were near us, right? And so, research is always flawed, but they saw a significant impact. And there was one kid that they talked to that he said if this library hadn't been here, because 3 years is a big impact if you're in high school, right? He never would have graduated 10th grade because they required, all the schools, because of being held to state standards, required printed papers to be turned in. He didn't have a computer at home, he didn't have internet, he didn't have a way to print, and we gave free printing. And so the fact that a 10th grader knew to say that means that it was very much a part of their life. And so I can brag on that. But it was the dumb luck of saying yes in that moment, not knowing what I was getting into, having it not be easy all the time, but it ended up in that library still going on. They have like 7 branches now. But I was there at the right time to kind of help that happen. I was the only librarian on the team. And so, story number 2. I've been painting for about 20 years. No one's probably ever seen this blurry painting. This isn't my style, but I've been painting for a really long time. And in the past, I was just painting for my own enjoyment, and so would often give them to Goodwill, give them to friends, paint over them, that sort of thing. And so flash forward, here's a couple more, a very different style, but I thought it might be fun to see. It was fun to dig up these photos. And so flash forward to 2016, Kitsap County, still painting. This is where I painted this one. But then in 2020, I coincidentally had some extra time on my hands. Anyone else? And so I started painting landscapes. And I don't really know the thought process that triggered that. But I knew there was something good about this for me. It just seemed right. And so you can kind of see my progression. I wasn't necessarily good at it right away, but I knew I needed to do this. And so then in 2021, Elena says, hey, why don't we have a show here at Vibe? And we got really creative with like timed showings. So not a lot of people would be here at a time. And it was actually a really wonderful model. It worked out really well, and it created these wonderful small group conversations, and it flowed. Here's some photos from that. Recognize this space. And I'll say it was incredibly vulnerable having, and more so than that last project. Yeah. Okay. It was incredibly vulnerable to have, to be showing my art, because I had always been about work. It had always been about work. And so kind of being in this space, and she convinced me it was the right thing to do. And it was. I kept painting. After that, I kept painting, and I'll flip through these. And here was more. Here was one that was recently hung in a house in Bellevue. It is 7.5 feet wide. And I'm still painting. And so it took someone to say yes and to me, to say, hey, no, you can do this. You're fine. You've got this. And so sometimes we're lifting other people up. We might prop ourselves up, but sometimes it's being brave and taking that opportunity to lift someone else up in those spaces. Sometimes we need it. I wouldn't have done it. And I probably wouldn't be here if not for that kind of really vulnerable moment. And so it's not always within us. I'll briefly talk about another opportunity. A couple of years ago, I had coffee with the founder of a commercial construction company, and she asked me to come work for her. So I left the library system, and now I'm back at Kitsap Regional Library. I took a 2-year hiatus, and I learned a lot about construction, but this was very scary. This was, again, my yes and. And we did some neat things. We won some awards. This is in Chicago. But really the impact that I got from that was the field guys. This group of people, specifically this man, Archie, was positivity and joy. He was the most functional field superintendent I've ever met. He empowered and he coached and he brought joy and communication. And he doesn't know I took a picture of him. I mean, he knows I took this picture, but he doesn't know it's up here. But I have told him this. And spending time, he let me use his pneumatic nail gun. He taught me how to frame. And the fact that he had the patience, and he showed that same patience to all of the new apprentices, all the new guys, and he was what I needed from those 2 years. Yeah, there were other lessons learned, but pertaining to what we're talking about, he just lived this. He lived the joy, and it overflowed and kind of poured out to other people. And he was so consistent with it. And so he generated it. And I thought, how do I do that? How do I figure that out? And so I think about him. This is my team now at the library, and we're doing a team building thing at a fall staff day. And so in these moments where I'm leading a team and trying to shape organizational culture, I think about Archie. I really do. And other people, but I think, how do I overflow so other people can feel that, so that can help them change their mindset, but it can help them build resilience if I have the capacity to, right? And so very quickly here, does anyone see the Facebook memories? I don't care, you may not be on Facebook anymore, but I started to see a change in myself I started to see these from like 17 or 18 years ago, and now I look for them. My voice changed. Yes, I grew up. Hopefully I got some wisdom from life. But I started to see that negativity that I had at a young age, just with how I communicate and what I was posting and things like that, it started to change. And it doesn't mean we have to be falsely happy. There was a study out of Germany that said that authenticity is proven to be stronger than love, right? And so obviously there needs to be some authenticity. It has to be a choice, but it takes those baby steps. And I kind of surprised me when I talked to my husband about this, like, oh yeah, I have changed. And it was funny to see it, and this is oddly how I saw it. Okay, I have a thing to pass out. I cut up a canvas, a painting for you all. It's a little bit more fun than paper, and so please take one, grab whatever, they're all different kind of cuts, and hang on to it. One more story. Am I good? Okay, all right. So a couple of years ago, like I said, these aren't linear stories, I got a library director job offer back in Wisconsin. It was for a 10-branch system. They were fundraising for a new library. That's my dream job. And I apologize for anyone of my friends in the room that didn't know about that. Yes, I was going to leave Kitsap County, but I didn't. And I didn't because there was something nagging, and I hate to talk too much about intuition because that means different things to all of us, but I knew I wasn't done. And since then, I'm seeing a couple folks here, we co-founded Kitsap Women's Summit, and some other incredible things. See if I have slides. This is where I got the job offer. And yes, that would have been the perfect thing. That would have been the next yes and, right? But something wasn't quite right, and it was more like a not yet, right? There'll be something else, this isn't quite, and nothing was wrong with it. It's not like I found any, thing wrong with the job in the end. A wonderful person ended up getting it when I turned it down, but I knew I wasn't done here, and 6 months later, I asked this guy out. And this sounds like the yes and, but actually, this was the easy part. It was why I stayed, it was the right thing. But this ended up being the hard yes and, being a stepmom to 2 teenagers. And here's more photos of because I can show off. This was last year. So this was my niece who moved in with me. And then these are my 2 stepkids. And well, we always had a good relationship. There were never any super lows. It was awkward moving into a household, and they have a great relationship with my husband, with their dad and everything. So it was the best case scenario, but it was incredibly hard. I also felt like when I would talk about it to others, and specifically mothers, other women, even women that loved me, I felt like I needed to explain, yes, I like their mother. They get along with their mother. I needed to justify so I didn't feel kind of guilty for having such a good relationship with them. So I was tapping into that. I was tapping into them growing up from 13 to 16 and 19, and being okay with the slow progression of, okay, saying, I love you, Dad, bye, Ashley, to I love you guys, and hearing that, and not having it come too quickly, and maybe not responding to it, right? Saying it back, but not. There were really complex feelings about being a stepmom because I didn't raise them, right? And so that ended up being the hard lesson, the growth, hey, I need positive mindset here. They are essentially adults moving at their own pace, and so now I get to soak in and enjoy, but not take for granted when I come home from work and they wander downstairs and hang out in the kitchen and talk to me, right? Because they hear that I came home. But that is something I never expected. And so that was, yes, getting married is the yes and the wonderful, positive response to that. But this was the one that was the hardest, and that was the growth moment. And incredibly humbling, and all that goes into it. And so sometimes the yes and isn't, for me, it's always been about work, and this was the one time it was about, or one of the times it was about family, and that was really uncomfortable for me. And so, last slide, I'm about to turn 37, and my father died in a plane crash 2 days before his 37th birthday. And so I say that, it's been a long time, and so that's all right. But I've been reflecting a lot about what it means to outlive your parents, right? And how quickly life goes. And so now more than ever, I feel the importance of kind of the yes and. Why hold back? Definitely don't be reckless. And doesn't mean overwhelm yourself and say yes to all the things. That's where you talk about purpose. And that, again, someone else can do a talk on the power of purpose. Don't burn yourself out. Don't commit to everything and then not be able to follow through, right? Everything in moderation. But I've been reflecting a lot because it's been a hard year of this and coming to terms with it and actually being okay that it makes me uncomfortable. But I have my sisters, they went through it too, and this year is just one of those things. And so what I would ask you all to do is take that, if you were able to pass around, and take a bit. Again, Canvas is a little more fun than paper. I could have passed around a notepad, but not the same vibe. And so think about an opportunity in your life where maybe you did practice. This can be reflective, and you don't have to do it now. You can think on it, take it home, do it next week. These work really well as bookmarks or pinned up on a bulletin board. An opportunity where you said yes and, so that you can reflect and hold on to that feeling, right? Doesn't mean it's always work. Maybe there was an opportunity in your past that now you can reflect on. Life is short. Generate your own joy. Can't always rely on others. The Archie, he generated his own joy. And look for opportunities like Elena did for me. Build other people up. Help someone else push their dream forward, right? Let's think about what else we could do for other people. We may not even know we're doing it. We may not know the impact, but what are the opportunities to build other people up? And then by doing that, we're getting the positive. We're getting the joy from that, right? And so I think it's still going around, but grab one, write on the back, do whatever you need to do, but look for opportunities. What is your hope? What are areas of your life that you maybe need to generate a little bit more yes and, even if it's the hard stuff? An opportunity to push someone forward, or kind of write down a hard lesson, or something you're dealing with, and then sit with it for a while. So use that as kind of your reminder to do some of the hard work. And that's it.